Good evening, everybody, and welcome to College Planning Night for juniors and their family. I'm Steve Goldman. I'm one of the school counselors at Middleborough High School, and we're glad you can join us for what is part one of a three-part series of how to best prepare yourself for the college planning process. So we have a panel of speakers that I'm going to introduce a little bit later. But first, what we're going to do is we are going to go through the workbook, which we have just uploaded onto our website. So why don't we start right there to show you how to access that workbook. Just as a heads up, the three workshops are all very different workshops, and they go in a sequential order of what you should be doing between now and April. And then the second workshop will be in April, and that'll cover what you should be doing from that point through the summer. And then the third workshop will be in September of the senior year, and that is the nuts and bolts of applying to college. It's important that you get the information from all three workshops. So here we are on the Middleborough High School website, and if we go to About Us and then click on Departments, and then we go down to the Counseling Department, and then we click on the Junior Information link, you will see the workbook that we are going to be presenting this evening. And this will take you step by step through everything that you need to do between now and April. So we're going to back out of this right now, and we are going to go to the workbook itself. Okay, and I think that's the wrong one I'm on. Give me 1 second here. Can you all see the workbook here?
Hey, Steve, you might be in the wrong tab. It looks like you have two tabs.
Okay, so let me close this one out.
You have two tabs there.
There we are. Okay, can you see that?
Yep, just bring that full screen and we'll be good.
All right, here we go. All right, so here we are. And we are going to go to the inside cover. On the inside cover of all the workbooks, you're going to see a timeline that will help walk you through the process. I'm not going to read everything to you, but just you can see there's registration dates and deadlines for SATs and ACTs. And you're here right now for this workshop. In February, we'll be posting the grade point averages in Naviance. The grade point averages will be based on 5 semesters, so everything through the midpoint of this school year. The reason it's not going to go out until mid to late February is that the semester is actually ending a little bit later this year because of the later start that we got. So the end of the semester is February 1st. And then we have to verify grades, and then if there's any incompletes, we need to get those made up. So it'll take a few weeks to sort through all that, but then the official GPAs will be posted, and that'll give you a rough idea of a number of that you can use when you're applying to colleges. So in February, you should be investigating different types of SAT preparation options. The best one is probably Khan Academy. That's free, and it's custom based on your based on your PSAT scores. Now I know a lot of you haven't taken, most of you, all of you actually have not taken the PSATs this year, but you do have a set of scores from the year before, and they will custom the preparation part of the program based on that. So you're only preparing in the areas that you need to. Once you get your new scores, those will be plugged in, and that'll help you for the SATs. So if you just read through, you see the different events that are coming up all the way through June. This is your school counseling staff right here. Just a reminder, if your last name falls between A and E, Miss Byrne, who is in the middle of this picture, is your school counselor. If your last name falls between F and M, Ash Barron would be your counselor. She's the one in the striped shirt. And N through Z are the folks that I work with. You can probably figure out which one is me in that picture. And then we have Mrs. Amaral, who is our administrative assistant on the left-hand side. She does a lot of things for the students, so she's a good person to get to know. And then Mrs. Miller in the white sweater is our school to career counselor. She's the one that will set you up with an internship next year if you're interested. She also handles the dual enrollment classes, along with a few other things also. So a word from guidance, and this is important that you understand how this process will work. Your school counselor is here to advise you during the college planning process. Our job is not to choose your colleges or to get you admitted, but to direct you in the exploration of possibilities to help you make a more knowledgeable choice and to help guide you through the application process. We can bring facts about you and your background to the college's attention. Your job is to help your school counselor highlight your unique qualities, personal strengths, and special circumstances. Remember, in most cases, you are looking to make a 4-year commitment. Be yourself. Don't try to be what you think the colleges want you to be. Choose your college because it is the right one for you, and you are right for it. Okay, so tonight we are going to talk about Naviance, which is our college and career software program. Mostly everything runs through Naviance. When you request transcripts for colleges, when you have to list everything in Naviance. So it's important that you understand how to use this program. We're going to go over a few aspects of it tonight. We're going to talk about the college appraisal and how to match yourself through the schools. So here's just a little checklist for you of things that you should be doing by mid-April. The first one you can check off. You're here right now. And then just, kind of read through that. If you're not sure what some of these things are, contact your school counselor and they will be happy to assist you in the process. If you're looking to pay a special attention to, mostly very important, these ones, the last the last 3 on there. Visit our website. There's a lot of good information on it. I don't know if you noticed when we were logging on earlier, but there's a calendar of events that are there. The school counseling department Twitter page is also a good resource for you. And when you get that email from us with the monthly newsletter, there is a lot of important facts and dates and deadlines of information that can help you through this process. Let's start with testing information. There's 2 different types of testing testing organizations. One is ACT, American College Testing, not as well known as the SAT. For years, ACT was a test that was really administered in the Midwest and the West, and the SAT was more of an East Coast test. Today, 99% of the colleges accept either one of those tests. They're set up a little bit differently. The ACTs are more subject-based, English, math, science, and reading, and there's an optional writing section, where the SATs are critical reading and writing and mathematics. Usually they're on different scales, but usually when you take those tests, when you look at your score reports, usually you score comparably. Now, if you've taken the SATs twice and you're still not happy with your SAT scores, then we would recommend that you would take an ACT to see if you score a little bit better on it. But taking the same test over and over and over again without significant preparation in between, the odds and the statistics show that very few people show any marked improvement. So that's something you can speak with your school counselor about. The costs are listed there, the registration deadlines. We are not a test center for ACT, but we are a test center for the SAT in May, and in November we are a test center. Now, with COVID and restrictions, that may change. We had to cancel being a test center for the November ones this year. That may be the case again. Most, if not all, of the colleges this year have gone SAT optional. So that's kind of a to be determined situation, but I would go forward and plan. We recommend that you take the May one. The March one's a little bit early. You want to get as much English and math under your belt as possible before you take these tests. And June is getting really late. By the time you get those scores back, we'll probably be out of school. And if you want to talk with your counselor about it, we won't be there to do that. So we always recommend the May one if you can. If for some reason the test is canceled, you will be refunded that money. Now, the SATs are a little bit different from the PSATs. You registered for the PSATs with the school. That all went through the school. For the SATs, you registered directly with College Board at the link to the right, www.collegeboard.com or .org. Either one will get you there. And then there's the SAT subject tests. There's not a lot of schools that require subject tests. Those are individual subjects, Math 1, Math 2, biology, chemistry, history. There's a ton of them. More testing is not always the best option. You don't want to end up reporting information that possibly could work against you or hurt your chances of getting into a school. There's probably about 70 colleges in the United States that require SAT subject tests, and there's maybe another 70 that recommend them. If they're not required, we recommend you don't take them. More is not better with testing. So if they're not required, we recommend you do not take them. The schools that require them tend to be the very upper level colleges or sometimes very highly competitive programs. For example, if any of you are thinking about nursing, there are some nursing programs that might require you to take an SAT subject test in biology, and that's part of your search to find out if that's a requirement. Okay, so let's move along to the school counseling website. So right here, and I'm gonna walk you through this in a minute to get to Naviance, and then everything we're gonna do tonight on Naviance, we have step-by-step instructions of how to access everything. So we know that you're not going to memorize everything, so we're purposeful in putting all this information together in this booklet for you, so you have a reference to go back to. So let's start with going back to the school website. If I can find it, where did it go? Here we go. Okay. So we're going to go to the school website and we're going to click on About Us again, Departments, and then we're going to go to the Counseling Department. And then we're going to scroll down. This is the calendar I was talking about. To Naviance. Okay. Now all the students were given their access codes and logged on as freshmen, and we asked you to save your passcodes in your phones. So if you can't remember, check your phone first. If you still cannot get on, contact your school counselor and they can reset your password for you. As far as the parents go, whoever the primary parent is that's listed in Aspen with an email address, if you're in there, then you will be receiving your own login credentials. We're working with Naviance right now to get those emailed out to you folks, so those should be coming out within the next couple of weeks. So this way you'll be able to set up your own account and see what your student's working on. So the first thing you want to do is you want to put in the Middleborough zip code, click go, and there's 2 schools in Middleborough that use Naviance. So we're going to click on Middleborough High School and then student. Your username is your school email address unless you changed it. And then your password is whatever you created. We do not have access to your passwords. And then you click continue. And something went wrong. I know what it is too. this. I guess this is going to be a little game for us now. I know what it is. Here we go. So here we are on the Naviance homepage. So it'll give you a welcome. And the reason it says 2024 is because we haven't updated that from the freshman workshops that we did. So that will be changed tonight. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to show you how to do a college search. So we're going to go over to colleges I'm thinking about. And then over in the left-hand column, we're going to click on Advanced College Search. Now, if we get too specific on this, it'll show up, there'll be 0 matches. So you got to only click on the things that are most important and not get too specific, okay? So if you like playing a sport, but you're happy playing intramurals, I wouldn't click on that sport because it's going to come up at the NCAA level and it'll eliminate schools that don't offer that sport. Okay, so we're going to start over here. We're going to select a 4-year college. Public or private, we'll leave it no preference. Campus surroundings, this is the size of the community the school's in, not the size of the school. What we usually recommend is if you're not interested in living in a big city like a Boston or New York, Chicago type of Los Angeles kind of city, then leave large city out. I would click rural because even schools like UMass Amherst UMass is a little city unto itself, but it is in a rural community of Amherst. And then most students are looking at a co-ed school. If a religious affiliation to that school is important, you can select which religion by clicking on the drop box. Again, that's going to limit the number of schools that show up on your list. And then we're going to click next. You can also do a search. You can go so many miles from your area code, from your zip code, or you can do an entire region, or you can click individual states. So most of our students look at schools in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. Okay, and then we're going to go down to next. And this is a little misleading also, the size of the student body at schools. Just because a school has name recognition, you see their football team on TV every week, does not mean it's a large school. So for example, a school like Boston College and Bridgewater are just about the same size. The big difference between Bridgewater and Boston College is Bridgewater is a Division III school and Boston College is a Division I school. So you don't see Bridgewater on ESPN every week. A school like the University of Miami is actually half the size of Bridgewater State. There's about 6,500 students on that campus. But they have one of the most powerful football programs in the country, and so you see them on TV a lot. Even Harvard probably has about 6,500 students, so it's very misleading. The average size college is in the range of about 5 to 10,000. So again, for selection purposes, if you don't see yourself at a massive university where you might get lost, then I would leave probably the last 2 off, and I would go with the bottom 3. Percent accepted, I would skip that for now. Percent from out of state and percent male and female, I would skip all of those. Okay, so we're going to skip that because you can sort your list by that later on if you'd like. Okay, and this is the athletic stuff. So if you are not going to commit and again, Division I, we have one person from the senior class who has been given a full scholarship to play Division I soccer next year at Temple University. But that is the first person that I've worked with in Middleborough in 5 years that has gotten an opportunity to do that. So again, the athletics is, if you're happy playing intramural, I would leave this part blank. Majors. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in a major to try to narrow it down. So let's type in something like business. And let's select it. And there's going to be a drop box that shows up. Click go. And there's all kinds of different types of business majors. So let's select a few here. So let's go business administration and management. And this one here, marketing. Business manager, marketing, related. Oops. I had a feeling that was going to happen. Let's do this again. Why it's doing that today? It doesn't want to cooperate. Try one more time. Okay, and then we're going to click add all, and they show up in the box down below. And then we're going to go next. I would skip cost for now. Cost is obviously a very important part of the decision making, but let's not let the cost limit us for the possibilities that are out there right now. Wait and see what you're getting offered for grants and aid. You may end up be able to go to a school that costs $70,000 for $30,000 in aid. So we're going to skip that for now and go on to the next one. Special programs like ROTC and that stuff, again, only if it's an absolute must for you. And then let's view the matches. And we have 55 matches out of the thousands and thousands of schools that are in this program. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to save the search. So we're going to click on this drop box right here. And you can see we've saved a whole bunch of different ones in there. You see how they're saved? Somebody did a psychology search, a business and psych search. So I would just suggest that when you save it, put the date in, type in what the major was and what states you included, and this way you can go back and view those searches anytime you want. So then we go down, and these are all the colleges that match the criteria of what we're just searching for. So let's click a few schools. Let's click on Babson and Bentley. And Bryant, which are the 3 Bs known for their business programs. Click on Bridgewater. Excuse me. And let's click on Stonehill. And we're going to click add to colleges I'm thinking about. So when we go back home and we click on colleges, oh, that's the wrong one. Go back home and we click on colleges I'm thinking about. All those schools show up here. Okay. Now what you can do is you can click on the school and a whole bunch of information will show up here in a second. There we go. So I clicked on Bridgewater, and right now we're on the overview. If you look at the top, you can do a virtual tour. You can communicate with somebody from admissions. if you're going to apply there eventually, you can click there and get their go right to their application, or just learn more, and they'll send you more information about the school. So they give you some basic information on this overview page: the average cost, the graduation rate, the acceptance rate, and then what all the different types of deadlines are. Quick facts about the school. It's a public school, and the size of the school, and the student faculty ratio, all that type of stuff. And I'll let Shannon talk more about Bridgewater in a few minutes, one of our panelists. We go back up to the top and we click on studies, and then they list all the different majors that they offer. So you can see if they, specifically in business, what do they offer there, and if it's something that you'd be interested in. The next is student life. It tells you a little bit about the dynamics of the school, the breakdown of the school. Over here, 8 miles from Middleborough. Maybe that's too close for some people. 41% of the people live on campus. They have some alumni talking about that. We'll talk about what the school was like for them. It's a breakdown of the type of diversity on campus, and the different clubs that are offered at the school. This is the organizations, and you can click on athletics, and it tells you what they have for athletics. Greek life, ROTC, special services, and computing resources. So there's a lot of information here. This is not Bridgewater's website. This is all in Naviance. The next button is one that I really like. It's the admissions button. When you click on this, it tells you what the application fee is, the deadline, and the acceptance rate, and the types of applications they have. But if you scroll down, it will give you this histogram. And what you see on this histogram are past Middleborough High School students. It's about 4 years of data. If there's a green check mark there, that means those students were accepted to Bridgewater. That dotted line that you see is the average of all those students' SAT scores and GPA. That little blue circle inside the dotted line, I don't know if you can see it right there, is this particular student's page that I'm on right now. So when you look at this, now, if you look at the legend down below, we don't have any waitlisted or red X denials from Bridgewater. And the reason we don't have waitlists is Bridgewater doesn't waitlist anymore. Bridgewater will send you a nice letter saying, why don't you go to Massasoit first, and then we'll gladly take you. So it's not a flat out rejection. So in some on other schools, you'll see red X's, and you'll see those blue and waitlisted students in there. So you can see right here, by being in this little blue person right here is clearly in the acceptance range. So this is a realistic school, if not a safety school for this student. So that's how you use how to use these histograms. So this is really helpful. If you scroll down, it tells you a little bit more about what they look for, what's important to them, what the courses are in high school you need to take to be eligible to go there. And again, application deadline information. These are this year's. That might change for next year, so you just got to watch that. Going back to the overview, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's another graph here. Again, comparing yourself to Middleborough High School students and nationally. This blue line on the first one under GPA shows you how this student fares at Bridgewater based on students from Middleborough that applied, and nationally the people that applied. So that person's well within the acceptance rate. Same thing with SAT scores. So there's a lot of great information in this page to really help you kind of get a sense, is this a realistic school? Is it a stretch school, or is it a safety school? So that is the search. We really encourage the students to do this and really get a sense of where they're applying. It's a very expensive proposition when you look at application fees. So we want to make sure that you guys have done your research before you start writing those checks and applying to these schools. So that's the search piece. So now we're going to switch back to the workbook. Okay. And the next thing is the activity sheet. The activity sheet is a document, which you can see right here, that the students need to fill out for their school counselor. It's also the second page of the scholarship application, which you don't need to worry about scholarships until the second half of the senior year. The scholarship book comes out usually the week before February vacation, but this is something that the students can start filling out now, and they can just save it and then plug in whatever is left next year before they submit it to their school counselor. So it just lists the different activities. Starts with athletics, music and drama, school publications, student government if they were involved in any of that, any honors they received, clubs and other programs, community service, and what you don't see in this little sample here is it also has work experience also. It's important that these are one of those little annoying things when you're a senior if you didn't do it with everything else going on senior year and trying to keep your grades up. Like, oh, I got to do these forms now too. So it really makes sense to start doing this now. So I know I can't remember what I did 4 years ago. I need time to think about that. So it just makes sense to start getting that info in. If you look at this right above it at the, again, the sample of the Naviance homepage, if you just scroll down to where that yellow arrow is, what you probably can't read that, but it says document resources, and that's where you'll find this form under document resources. Okay. So what do I put on the activity sheet? The students always end up shortchanging themselves. So in the left, we have a list of all the in-school activities that they possibly could have been involved with. And then on the right, some suggestions for out-of-school activities, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, community service work at church, temples, and mosques, dance, piano lessons, all the things that we don't offer in school, any club sports a student may have played. I always ask the students, do you have a part-time job? No. How about babysitting? Yeah, well, it's just babysitting. It's a job with a lot of responsibility, so sure, you want to include that. The other thing is, too, even if you only did it for 1 year or 2 years and you haven't done it recently, you still want to put it on this list. You don't want to, this list is for your school counselor, so when they're writing and it's also for the scholarship committees when they're reviewing the applications. And you want to make sure that all of us see that you're involved with things. We don't always do things for 4 straight years. Sometimes we have different interests and we change our plans. That's okay. But you don't want to come across as a couch potato either, and someone that just goes to school and goes home and doesn't do anything. So make sure you're including all these things on here. Now, just as an understanding, when you go to save this, you can't just save it in Naviance. You need to save it outside of Naviance, and I believe the instructions are actually on here. Yes, they are. So where it says right here, do not save in Google. If you put this into a Google document, it is going to jack the formatting on this, and it's not going to be, it's not going to make any sense. So you have to save it as a Word document someplace. And then this way you'll be able to go back in and edit it. Okay, so we're going to move along into the self-appraisal part. Okay, so freshman year, we started this process with all of the juniors, and we had them log on. If you log on to your homepage and click at the top where it says About Me, and then down here where it says My Assessments, you will see the work that you've already done. Now, we know that a lot of students, some students did this, and other students chose not to do it when we were doing this presentation. So if none of that is filled in, as we told you during that presentation, you may regret this later on. It's important that you start doing this work now. You might have a little catching up to do so you can start kind of getting a sense of, where your true interest lies, especially for those of you who are undecided or A lot of times people think they know what they want to do, but then when they actually find out what it means, what they have to do take for classes, that's not in their skill set or in their interest area. So this will help you kind of sort through a lot of that before you start the college search piece. Unfortunately, the Do What You Are, you didn't get to take that last year. That was the sophomore presentation. We would have done that during the shutdown for COVID. So my suggestion would be that you go there, do the Do What You Are. It's a career interest inventory. When you're answering those questions, there's no wrong answers. It's based fully on preference. If you answer those questions honestly as to what you would do, even if you feel it doesn't make you look like in a positive light, for example, sometimes people say, well, it's going to make me look like a procrastinator or somebody that doesn't really care. That's not what this is about. You and your counselor are the only ones that are going to see this. And by filling this out, you'll get an honest, true evaluation of your personality type, and they will correlate that with careers that might be suitable for you. So if you do it that way, it's going to recommend careers that would be interesting to you and that you might be successful in, rather than you being in a job that doesn't fit your personality and you're miserable in every day. So take a look at that. And some of the other things that are in there are the learning style inventory, the strengths explorer, and the career interest profiler. If you want to take some time to play with those, you could certainly do that also. Okay. I mentioned earlier about GPA. The grade point averages, as I said, will be mid to late February. To access them, you're gonna click on About Me, and then the My Account, and then you scroll down to the bottom, and right here is where that arrow is where you would find your grade point average. Matching self to school. Okay, this is a work in progress. And it's going to take, you can't just do it in a few minutes. You got to really kind of take the time to look at all this information and say, what's going to be the right match for me? A word to the wise: organize. Start a folder for each college that interests you. Keep copies of any correspondence you have with schools, as well as applications, forms, financial information that you've received. The more organized you are, the easier this process will be. The college search, I already showed you how to do that piece. And how to add everything in. And here are some tips for visiting colleges. Okay, now, our admissions counselors will speak to that. Some schools are only doing virtual tours and meetings. Others are allowing small groups of people to come in. So you'll have to check individually with each school that you're considering. But here are some things to think about before you have either a virtual meeting or step on campus. If you have the opportunity to speak to students, ask students some of these questions that you see here. This is going to be a different experience for you. You're not going to have things ready and right there for you like you would when you go home at night. There's things that you're going to have to take care of as a young adult. It's things you just haven't thought of before. So look at this list, and this will help you get a sense of some of the things that you should start thinking about as far as what will make you comfortable in your new setting. Okay, questions to ask. Here are some questions to ask admissions counselors about the classroom. How big are the classes? Who's teaching you? Type of housing that's available. What's there to do on campus? And just specific things for that school that might be important. Get on mailing and email lists. That's just the best way to get information from the schools. And then we're going to mark our calendars. So the National College Fair is not going to happen this year. It's usually in late April, early May at the Boston Convention Center. But unfortunately, due to COVID, they cannot put all those people in the convention hall. So they're doing several different virtual fairs. So there's going to be a lot of colleges represented at these things. If you click on the link at the bottom of that box, you'll be able to register and attend any of those fairs. So take advantage of those 3 dates. Wednesday, April 28th at 6 o'clock. It probably will be virtual again. We're going to have college planning for juniors and their families, part 2, what you should be doing over the summer, which will pick up where we left off tonight. And usually in late July, early August, we have the college application boot camp, and we're going to have our student panelists talk a little bit about that. You talk to any senior that went through that boot camp, and they will tell you it was well worth their time to do that. When the students walk away from that boot camp, their essay is completed and ready to be uploaded into applications, and the common application is probably about 90% complete. It really would be helpful going into your senior year to have all those things behind you. And we really walk you through step by step each question on that application. And then when you're a senior, college play night for seniors and their families will be sometime in late September. And that's the nuts and bolts of applying to college, what you need to get done, what you need to get to us and your teachers. We usually have a financial aid workshop where we have an expert come in to talk about how to fill out the FAFSA form and best prepare yourself. We had to cancel it this year, but they had set up a whole bunch of virtual ones. So either way, those will be happening in the fall. And as I had mentioned earlier, scholarship information night will be usually it's the week before February vacation, and that is when the scholarship booklet is launched. That's all the local scholarships in the area. There will be things that come into our office from time to time that we will send out in a general email for you to consider. But again, the bulk of them will be done in February. And at the end of all the workbooks, we have sample forms. So again, here is a sample of the activity sheet. So we purposely put this in here to show you how to word things, so you don't you don't waste any space, and that you get the point across to everybody. Okay, so just make sure that you're following this this model here. And when you're doing your length of employment, make sure that you're doing the month, the year, to the month and the year. And then we have a glossary of terms. You're going to start to hear a whole bunch of words and acronyms going through this process that are not going to make any sense to you whatsoever. So check the glossary to see if that can answer your question. If it's not, check with your school counselor, so we can also add that to the glossary for the next group of people that go through this workshop. And that is the workbook. So I'm sure there's probably some questions. Please either type them in or into the presentation, and we can answer them. Or they may get answered with the panel discussion, which is coming up in a minute. So let's move back to StreamYard. And I'm going to introduce our panel. And before I introduce the panel, I just want to, you may notice that our leader, Mr. Brannigan, is not with us right now. There was a very important, oh, Mr. Brannigan is now here. What good timing that is. So you know what? I'm going to give Mr. Brannigan a moment to do a nice little welcome.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome tonight to our first of our workshop series for college planning. So I'm really thankful to our panel tonight, who is here to kind of give some guidance and some words of wisdom and advice. And thank you to the school counseling department and Mr. Goldman for their help with all of this as well. So it's a lot of information, but know the fact that as you go through the process, it really is the one-stop shopping that is done in regards to these programs really gives you really all the information that you need to take these important steps as you're navigating what's coming next after graduation. So welcome tonight, and thank you to everyone for being a part of the panel tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Brannigan. So now I'm going to introduce our panel members. We're going to start with Shannon Fernando Cole, who is the admissions counselor at Bridgewater State University, and she is a veteran of our panel. She has been doing this for at least 4 years now. So Shannon, maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself and Bridgewater.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve, for having us tonight. So hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Fernando Cole. I'm a first-year admissions counselor at Bridgewater State University. I've been working there about 5 years now, and I also did my undergrad at BSU. I'm very excited to chat with you guys and help you talk about planning your college search and application process. And I definitely encourage you guys to ask any questions that you guys have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shannon. And Shannon may have confused you when she said she was a first-year admissions counselor who's been there for 5 years. So I'm going to put my former higher ed experience to use right now and explain what that means. In the world of higher ed, they don't use the word freshman. They're first-year students. So she works with the incoming freshman or first-year students. So she has been there for 5 years. She's not making anything up here. All right. Well, thank you, Shannon. So our next person is brand new to our panel, and she is coming from Stonehill College, and it is Sarah Thomaschauer. Did I say that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Thomaschauer. I am also a first-year admissions counselor for Stonehill. I've been with Stonehill now. This will be my 5th admissions cycle. So I've been with the school since 2016, which is also since my graduation from Stonehill. So I've technically been with the college since 2012. This is my first 4 years were as a student. I also work with our transfer population. So one of the other terms that we use in the college admissions process is a transfer student, and that is a student who's coming from another college or university and transferring into Stonehill. So I work with both incoming freshmen and our transfer population. I'm originally from New York, so I'm a transplant from a land of Starbucks, and I've come to the land of Dunkin' Donuts. So I'm really excited to be here with you and talk a little bit about what Stonehill has to offer. But I'll pass it back over to Steve.
Thank you, Sarah. And for the first time, we have a mother-daughter team that are doing this. It's not usually the same family. It's usually two different people, different families represented. But we couldn't help ourselves because they're both awesome and they did such a great job with this process. So I want to introduce Ann Petty, who is the parent, and Aileen Petty, who is the student. So,
hi, everyone. We're happy to be here, and please post any questions that you might have for us. It's been a long process, and it's been difficult with COVID, but we're excited about what's going on, and we hope to help you out tonight.
Yep, and as a senior, I'm definitely here to help from the student perspective. So if you have any questions about my decisions that could maybe help out in your process, don't hesitate to ask. I would be happy to answer them.
and this is an example of a mother and daughter who did everything the right way, starting in 8th grade. I remember them very well at the program of studies night, asking very important questions about the big picture and stuff. So they are a wealth of information. So I would encourage you to take advantage of their being here this evening. So we're going to start a little bit about matching self to school, and I'm going to ask Shannon to start the conversation on that.
Sure, yeah, thank you. So definitely, I think, speaking to what Steve was talking about earlier, when you're kind of looking at the different school options out there, I think on paper, it can be a little overwhelming at times because a lot of these schools are going to look very similar to what they're offering in terms of what you're interested in. So I think that you want to look at some important factors in what you're interested in out of your school and your education experience. Are you looking for a private school? Are you looking for a public school? Are you looking to stay in state and pay in-state tuition or go out of state? What are you looking at for size? Do you want a larger school? Do you want those large lecture halls? Do you want a smaller school with a feel more like your high school classroom? And what are you looking for your major? Are they offering your major, and is it a good program at this school? And you want to look at what they're offering for extracurricular activities too, because you're only going to be in classes a couple hours a day. So what this school is going to be able to offer you outside of the classroom is just as important as what they can offer you academically. You want to look at the campus life too. If you're someone who wants to be involved, you want to see what that school has to offer, what their campus life is like, and what their student life is like. So those are definitely some important things to consider. If you're looking for housing too, and you're positive you want to live on campus most of, if not all of your college career, you want to look at whether or not the school is going to offer you housing and for how long, if they have it all 4 years. So just some things that I like to let students know about that can help set schools apart and really help you kind of start to sift through and see what schools you might be more interested in learning more about.
Thank you, Shannon. Sarah, anything you'd like to add to that?
I just want to echo everything that Shannon just said. It was exactly on point. A lot of schools are going to sound very similar. They're going to look very similar. I bet after just a couple of websites, you're going to notice some common themes and things might start to blend together. Just to touch on the visit aspect that you talked about earlier, try and visit schools that fit a bunch of different criteria. So even if you're not sure if you're interested in a city school, visit one in a city, visit a rural school, visit a suburban school. For families where maybe it's their first child going through the process or they haven't done it in a while, I always recommend to try and really visit a diverse list of schools, even if you end up at a school that's completely opposite than a rural school. You always want to keep the door open. You always want to check off all the boxes in your search. And that will help you sort of narrow it down. And it's another good reason that we're here in January talking about this, because for families that start later on with the visit or later on in the research process, you find that your weekends, they become very limited and the hours become very limited to dedicate to the college search. So the amount of time that you are all committing to this is setting you up for a very pleasant search already.
Thank you. So maybe if we could have our mother-daughter team talk a little bit about some of the things they did when they were starting this process and trying to find the right fit for them.
Sure. So when I was first starting to look at schools, I didn't have like a specific kind of criteria to fit into. Like I kind of had the mindset going into it, like I feel like I'd be fine going to any school that I got into. So I didn't really have a preference over like large or small school or in the city or rural. So I kind of just based my search off of what programs were offered and kind of that ranking. And also for distance from home, that was somewhat important of a factor. And most of the schools that I ended up applying to are close to like, I don't know, I would say the furthest one is probably like 15 hours away. I mainly stayed within the New England region and kind of the East Coast. So as far as that goes, just finding schools that match your academics, but also like both Sarah and Shannon said, is finding like extracurriculars that also match what your interests are, because that's a huge important part of what your life is going to be like on campus too.
Yeah, and it was definitely an overwhelming feeling in the beginning, I feel like, but in the end, like Aileen said, we just focused more on like kind of the big picture was what schools best provided what she might want academically. And if she ended up with biomedical engineering, and then those programs, we went from there. And she had many different interests as far as size. So we have a few schools that are smaller and some that are larger. So we kind of have a balance of everything. So it's important to kind of focus on what you think is best for you, and then, build your list from there. We have reach schools. We have schools that our
Match.
schools, and what's the third?
Safety.
Safety schools. So we have all three of those on our list,
Yeah.
on our final list.
Thank you. And I have to say, I'll share a little bit about my experience from 35 years ago. But it's always important to have a safety school, and not necessarily because you're not going to get into the schools that you're applying to. A lot of students say, I'm going to get into these schools. I have the numbers. I know I'm going to get in. And that might be the case. I had a student several years ago who applied to schools very far away, out in Arizona, California, Colorado, and she was all set. She was ready to go. Unfortunately, her father passed away unexpectedly. She was an only child. There was just the three of them. It obviously hit her mother and her very hard. And she ended up going to her backup school, which was UConn. This is in central Massachusetts. So UConn wasn't that far away. It was close enough to get home on the weekends and be a support to mom and vice versa. Hopefully none of you experience a tragedy like that, but there's always, I've had a student also whose dad lost his job just before the bill was due. So all the financial aid had been based on the job he had had for many, many years, making decent money. Now all of a sudden she couldn't afford to go to school there. So there's other reasons why you might want to have a safety school in play. So now going back to when I was doing my search, and I was clueless at the time. I remember the first school that I went and visited, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I went and I said, this is awesome. This is where I want to go. This is so great, because it was shiny and new and different, and it wasn't high school. It wasn't my house, it was just a different experience away from everything. Then I remember going and visiting the next school, and I'm like, this school's awesome. What was I thinking about with that other school? Now, after you start to see several schools, and I'm sure Aileen can speak to this, after you start to kind of visit all these different schools, you're going to start to notice differences between them. And you're going to realize what you thought was great before is nothing compared to some of the other places or other things that you've seen along the way. So it's really important. I just got an email from a senior who actually did a pretty decent search. Somebody graduated last year. She's a freshman this year. And she's already looking to transfer. She goes, it's just not for me. She goes, the school's nice, but it's just, I don't feel like it's the right fit. You got to have that feeling. As Aileen and Ann said, certainly you're there for your education, and you want to make sure they have the right major, not a compromised major. But if you're not happy in your social setting, as I can't remember, one of the admissions counselors said, you're only in class a couple hours a day. If you're not happy in that social setting, that can have an impact on your academics also. So it's really important that you're finding an environment that's going to provide both in and out of the classroom experiences that are going to make you feel comfortable and complete. So thank you to the panel for sharing on the Matching Sullivan School. We're going to move along to the interview and the visit, and we touched a little bit on this already. And that's going to be a little bit, maybe a little bit different for this group. Let's start with Ann and Aileen. Were you able to do any visits or interviews?
So I remember as a junior, I did the Colleges of the Fenway tour, which was able to happen before everything got shut down. And then we also got to fit in, I think, 2 tours.
Yes.
Two
official
tours.
Or
3 official tours. And then everything started to get shut down. So after that, we decided to pursue like the virtual information sessions and like the virtual tours through, I think it was UVisit. It's like a complete like 3D software that gives you a full tour of the school. And for me, that was really helpful because I feel like getting to visualize the school on that level was definitely important. And the information sessions were kind of set up like the one tonight where we had panel members, and it was helpful to get like insight from the students while also the admissions counselors and just getting to see what the school is all about and everything that they offer.
Yeah, and with that, so we wound up putting a few more schools on her list because we didn't really have a chance to tour them. And we thought, you know, if we apply and get in, then we might take a trip, you know, a little bit further. We didn't want to, you know, be traveling during COVID. So we have a few more schools on our list that we never had a chance to go see. But what we tried to do over the summer was we tried to go to as many campuses that were nearby just to get a sense even of the surrounding community and what might be around. It definitely wasn't a true feel of the life on campus because there were no students there. Most of the buildings were closed. We tried to get in a few on our own, but it was it's been challenging, and I don't know if that has changed yet. Maybe a couple of the admission counselors could talk whether they are doing tours, but if you do have an interest in a specific school, I would call. I am hearing that some schools are offering smaller tours at this point. But again, we're going to wait for her letters to come back before we make any decisions about doing any more tours right now. But we tried to do as much as we could, you know, in what we had to work with and the schools that were open, that kind of thing.
I think we lost Steve. Mr. Brannigan, if I could just bring you in.
Yep. I think we.
So,
is he back? Oh, he's back.
just to touch on a couple of things that you both spoke about. First of all, when you're, Aileen, maybe you can speak to this. When you were looking at pictures of the schools that you're thinking about, whether it is on their website or Naviance or the internet, it was always a bright sunny day at college t-shirts, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Mr. Goldman, we're having a lot of problems with your video. Can you stop sharing your screen? That might help us.
I'm not sure. I don't know. We keep losing him. I got part of his question. I don't know, just for the panel.
Yeah, I think he was talking about how like all the pictures show like that the schools, I mean, from the pictures, it makes it seem as though all the schools are the same, which has basically been like a theme that was mentioned before with like the stats and everything about the schools. But I think to Mr. Goldman's point, like you're going to have to experience the school all year round. So you have to take into consideration like the other factors. Like I'm applying to some schools up north. So I know those like bright sunny day pictures are not going to be the same when it's like in winter and it's freezing cold. So I think just like taking in every aspect of the school when you're applying to it is an important piece of advice to have and keep in mind, because not every single day is going to be like that. So
yep. And I think that would be such an important aspect of it too, of just that, you know, the geographical location that you're thinking about. And sometimes those pictures look glorious in a catalog or online as well. But that's all part of that decision that needs to be made in where you're going to be spending the next 4 years potentially. So good point, Aileen. Mr. Goldman, I'm not sure. Oh, Sarah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just in response to what Aileen said, I think that you're absolutely right. A lot of our websites, we take pictures on the most beautiful day. When I visited Stonehill back in 2010, 2011, when I was looking as an incoming freshman, I actually only ended up visiting on incredibly rainy or snowy days. Every time I visited, I just sheer luck just got pouring rain, and all the students promised that this campus was pretty and it wasn't always just a pile of mud. And eventually I was able to visit on a sunny day. So I completely understand that the sentiment of, trying to figure out what a school would be like in all the seasons and all the different scenarios. And this is a situation with COVID that has changed the college admissions process in a completely crazy direction. But at the same time, I think it has allowed us admission counselors to do what we do best and talk about our school. I highly recommend that if you have questions or concerns about a school, about what it might be like, and you're not getting a good enough sense from a virtual tour or a video, join us for a student panel. Our students would be happy to talk about what our campus life is like during a snowstorm or when we have pouring rain. Here in New England, obviously the weather, spring is sometimes a thing. Sometimes we jump right to summer, sometimes it stays winter. They'd be happy to talk about that. Admissions counselors would be happy to go more in depth about any of our programs or extracurriculars or what residence life is like. Many people who work in the offices of admission are alumni of that institution. So they can definitely share perspectives of when they were students, as well as what we hear from our current students and what we hear from other faculty and staff. So while the process of visiting the college might be limited and might be a little different and be primarily virtual, please know that our lines of communication are very open, whether it's a video conference, a Zoom, a Skype, a phone call, an email. You can always reach out to us and we'd be happy to expand on anything you're learning about on the website or through any literature you're receiving.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Mr. Goldman, are you back?
I'm back. I told you, Mr. Brannigan, I need a new laptop.
That's right. You do.
My apologies. But I was getting bits and pieces, so I know you were continuing the conversation. Yeah. So if I repeat anything, just stop me. Where do we leave off?
Well, we were just talking about, Aileen did a really nice job of just talking about really looking at considering really from the magazine photos, and then Sarah as well just talked about that most universities are going to choose the best time of the year and the best location to be able to make those, photographs of their institutions. Mm-hmm. But really be thinking about really what that would entail as, where they geographically would be going and the climate and all of that. So that's kind of where we ended off.
Okay, yeah, and that was right, and that was the point. And
yep.
And even more so, the importance of when you got on campus, Aileen, you may not have seen the same pictures for yourself with your own eyes, right?
Yeah, and especially since like a lot of the tours that we did were just walking around campus without students actually there. Mm-hmm. Like over the summer, we just walked around an empty campus, and that's like a complete different feeling than what you would get if you went on an actual tour and you got to see students walking around.
Yes.
I feel like even just from the tour itself, you can kind of get a feel of the environment and like the spirit of the school and kind of like what the students, like what their traits are too. And that's such an important part of picking a school. So COVID has definitely made that harder, but I think talking about the virtual like sessions and reaching out to the admissions counselors is definitely important, or going on a student panel where you can get a student's point of view from the campus itself is definitely important.
Yes, absolutely. And this is always the part of the presentation where I try not to offend our admissions counselor friends. But I worked on 2 different college campuses, one of them being Bridgewater, for a total of 7 years. And I have yet to meet an admissions counselor that truly knows what life is like after 5 o'clock on a college campus. Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on well into the evening. not that they're not interested in it, but when you're actually in the trenches and experience it and seeing it, it's a little different. And the other piece is too, and I'm in this category now myself, is as we all start to get older, our opinions of what is fun and exciting is a little bit different from an 18-year-old's. So it's really, really important to talk to the students. And I still go on tours of campuses as a counselor from time to time. And they're official tours from the admissions office for guidance counselors. And a lot of times I break away from those tours after a while and just kind of explore the campus myself. I talk to students because they're the ones that are going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Is this what it's really like? They'll tell you, it's not what I thought it was going to be when I applied, but it's not bad. Or you'll get the students are the ones that are closer in age and have the similar interests, and it's really important that you talk with them and find out from them what they like about their campus. I have a couple other notes here when you were talking. You brought up another good point about sometimes you just can't physically get to a college campus, but you're very interested in it. So, maybe it's this year, a lot of times it's because of COVID, but sometimes, the school is just a plane ride away. It's not a day trip. And you don't even know if you're going to get into that school. So you do go through the process of applying. And if you do get accepted, you have until May 1st to put a deposit down at the school that you want to make your home for the next 4 years. So if you always have the opportunity during April vacation to maybe take a trip out to that school that's really far away and get that visit in and see for yourself, is it what like it looks in the pictures? Do I feel it as I'm walking around on campus? Okay, so that is so that's that. So did Shannon and Sarah have a chance to chime in about the college, the visit and the interview?
I have not yet.
Okay, so let's move along there and give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about it.
Great. So I always encourage students to visit as many schools as they possibly can. And I obviously know that with COVID, that's a little bit more difficult. But I think that when you are on a campus, you get a feeling, whether that's good or bad. And to me, that is one of the biggest indicators of whether or not you are going to fit in and whether or not you are going to like that campus. And so that feeling is very important. It's very indicative of your interest in that school. So like I said, that's why I encourage students to visit as many schools as they can. Do your research on the website. A lot of schools right now are, if they're not doing in-person visits, they have created a virtual visit of some kind that is really in-depth, like Aileen was saying. For example, Bridgewater is offering in-person tours right now. We're doing them Monday through Saturday. We're doing a bunch of different times, and it is a one-to-one, so one tour guide to one family or student, whoever's coming in that party. And you can see the campus. We can't necessarily go into the buildings, but we can show you around campus, and you can talk to our students about what it's like to live on campus, even if you have questions specifically about what it's like to live on campus during COVID. And you can really get a feel for what it's like to be on campus. If you have the opportunity to drive through campuses like Ann and Aileen said that they did, I think that's still a great opportunity. If you go to Bridgewater too and you don't want to sign up for a tour, we actually have right at the Welcome Center, we have little self-guided tour books. So you can go to campus, take one of those self-guided tour books that tells you about campus and wander around yourself. We just ask that you wear a mask and adhere to the social distancing guidelines while you're on campus. But it is a great opportunity for you to still see our campus. But we obviously understand that students are not necessarily going to be comfortable being on a campus right now or traveling. So we do have some great online resources as well. We're doing a lot of online info sessions and opportunities for students to ask questions with our tour guides over Zoom. So definitely take advantage, see what other schools are offering for that virtual programming. And this section, we also usually talk a little bit about interviews if schools are offering interviews. So definitely look into that, especially now during COVID, where admissions counselors aren't able to travel to your high school and meet with you. An interview is a good opportunity if schools are offering it virtually, for you to kind of broadcast yourself and for us as admissions counselors to put a face to your application and learn a little bit more about you and what you're interested in. And so for those like Bridgewater this year, we are newly doing optional interviews, and you can register for them right on our admissions tab on the website. And you sign up with who your admissions counselor is based off of your last name. And we just ask you a couple questions about why you're interested in BSU, what you're looking for from a college, what you're looking to do after college, what you're looking to get involved in, so we can get a feel for if BSU is going to be a good fit for you. And we're opening the opportunity for you to talk to us, ask us any questions you have, as well as any concerns you might have. We understand that a hybrid model of learning or any kind of challenges that might have come up learning during COVID is very real, and sometimes it's reflected in your transcript, and you may not have that opportunity to explain it. So that is allowing us to open that conversation with you and hear if you've had any challenges that you want to explain, so we can consider that when we're looking at your application. So definitely look into what schools are offering for interviews, and if they have optional interviews or required interviews. Some schools do require them. Just preparing yourself for what questions they're going to ask about why you're interested. Make sure you know why you're interested in the school and why you're applying. And I definitely, like I said, I encourage students to look into those opportunities.
Thank you, Shannon.
Sure.
So a couple of more info, a little bit more info about the visits. Not all colleges do interviews. So if you come across a college that does do it, that means they really want to get to know you. And you really should take the opportunity to do it. Now, the interview is very intimidating to a lot of people also, and you shouldn't let it be intimidating, because you need to look at this as not them checking you out, but you checking them out. You're the buyer. You're the one that is going to be investing a lot of money in this, and you got to make sure that they're going to provide you with what you're looking for, what you need. And you shouldn't be intimidated by the fact you're talking to these people. You should go in with a list of questions. Use the workbook that we have posted on the junior link, because all those important questions are there. Ask them about the majors. Ask them about whatever is interest. If you want to play a sport, whatever it might be, and make sure that you're making a well-informed choice before you put that deposit down. If you would like, you certainly could talk with your school counselor before you go off for an interview, and we can kind of work and kind of go over some questions with you, and so you're prepared to do it. But it shouldn't be as scary as a lot of people think it actually is. So before we move on to the next section, is there any more comments from the panel?
I just want to say for Stonehill, we are offering tours for self-guided tours for our admitted students. So for those who have been accepted for our early action pool, and then for those who will be accepted in our later application pools, we are offering tours for them right now. Come the summer, the fall, we will absolutely have more self-guided options for our prospective students. We just want to make sure that our students who maybe didn't get a chance to visit us in the fall and have already received a positive decision have the opportunity to visit campus. We are also doing a plethora of online accepted students days, as well as virtual open houses that will come later on in the summer and the fall. And we're doing 2 weekly virtual general information sessions, and they are running exactly the same way they would in person. It's the same exact presentation. You will actually have 2 admissions counselors instead of 1, and a current student to hear from. So Stonehill is definitely, I would say, leaning heavier on our virtual options right now. But I would say that from my perspective as a student who is coming from out of state, the virtual options are really great, because they are allowing our students to visit a campus when maybe they wouldn't have had access to it. So definitely take advantage of all the online options, because admission offices are definitely getting very creative with different ways to interact with our prospective students without making you travel to us.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so we are now going to move on to the final section of our discussion tonight, which is the application and the essay. And let's start with Shannon.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of schools are offering their application through Common App, so I think that's important to know ahead of time, depending on how many schools you are looking at and how many schools you're looking to apply to. If you can apply via Common App, that's obviously going to be an easy option because you're filling out one main application and sending it to all of your schools. But some schools only have their own application. So just keep that in mind, that you may have an extra app or two that you need to fill out in order to apply. Most schools are doing online applications. I haven't seen paper applications for quite some time. But again, so just be prepared either to do the Common App or the individual application. Bridgewater offers both. Depending on what's easiest for you, we will accept either one. It doesn't matter. But just make sure that you're taking the time on your application. For Bridgewater, we're really only requiring the application itself in your high school transcript. We are test optional, but some schools will require you to submit your test scores. And like Mr. Goldman said earlier, some schools do require subject testing. So just make sure ahead of time that you're looking into what those requirements are so you are prepared. Again, like I said, we are test optional, so you don't have to send them, but you can. And typically when you're sending them, we are looking at your GPA first anyways. Typically a 3.0 or higher is good academic standing, and anything below that, if you send your test scores, they're only going to help you for admissions. A lot of schools will require some form of like personal essay or statement. And I know that your school has a great boot camp program that will help you work through creating a really strong essay. So just make sure that you are putting a lot of time and attention into what the story is that you want to let us know about you, because it really is a chance for us to get to know you. And for some schools, the personal statement might be optional. Always a good thing if you have it to just send it along for us to consider anyways. But yeah, and just know too, there are typically different deadlines for each school. So some schools will have early decision, some will have early action, and some have just the regular decision cycle. But typically with early decision, that is, just so you guys know the difference, early decision is binding. So you're contractually agreeing to that school if you get accepted. If you are interested in a school but you don't want to commit to them through early decision, you can apply early action. This shows that you are interested in that school. And typically sometime in the fall is when that application would be required to be submitted. For Bridgewater, it's November 15th is the early action deadline for BSU, and then regular decision is February 15th. So if you are looking to apply regular decision, just make sure that you're getting that application in by that February 15th deadline. And a lot of schools have differing deadlines. So just make sure that you know when those deadlines are, so you're not submitting them after the fact, because either they won't accept it, or if they do accept it on a rolling basis, you may not be eligible for things like housing if you're looking to live on campus. So again, this is when I think organization is going to come into play, because you want to make sure that you have all your deadlines, you're paying attention to what the requirements are for each of those schools.
Thank you, Shannon. Sarah.
Yes, absolutely. So Shannon covered a lot of great information about the Common App. Stonehill is on the Common App. It is a very easy process. We're Common App exclusive, actually. So the only way to apply to us is through Common App. You can just add us when you build your Common App application. It opens August 1st. So you have all of August before school even starts to start plugging away at it. So like that boot camp that was mentioned, definitely a great time to start plugging away at that. You can just add us right on there. Stonehill is one of those schools that has historically been test optional. So for 16 years, we were test optional. This year, Stonehill made a decision to go test blind, knowing that most students did not have access to the ACT or SAT. So as of right now, next year, test optional is going to be expected, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we continue with a test blind philosophy. What that means is that we will not review any test scores if they're sent to us. So we're only going to be looking at the curriculum that a student has taken and the GPA. So for Stonehill, we're looking for students who have challenged themselves. We're looking for students who have taken honors and AP level courses or dual enrollment. We are also looking for students with an average GPA of about a 3.3 on a 4.0 scale. So we're looking for a student that has pretty much averaged out to about a B plus A minus. We understand that not every year is going to be a home run, especially in a year with a drastic change to from in-person to distance learning. So we are reviewing students within the context of everything that's going on. So we understand that if a student may have had a struggle transitioning to distance learning, that we are reviewing them fairly and understanding the situations that every student has faced. Something else that was Shannon mentioned was the clarity and neatness of the application. We read dozens of applications a day, hundreds a year, thousands over the course of our career. A really important thing is to double check that spelling, make sure your I's are capitalized, you're spelling your family members, your own name right. I've read applications where a student spells their name wrong. The essay, have a peer look at it, have a teacher, have your guidance counselor or a parent look at it. Just make sure it's your best quality of writing. For Stonehill and for other institutions, we may use it as a writing sample. So a lot of times I'll read an essay and the writing will be really great, but throughout the rest of the application, the writing might be really sloppy or unedited. That kind of gives us a sense of how much time you can spend on a document versus what is the work that you're putting out sort of off the cuff. So I definitely recommend, if you're going to be putting a lot of time and effort into your personal statements or an honors essay or your general application essay, try and put that same amount of time into all of the additional writing areas of the application. I always say that the essay is the one place where it's not a fill in the blank, drop down from yes or no, or select from these options question. It's an opportunity for you to be creative and share your story. So definitely take some time to think about that, what you want to portray to us and what you want to tell us about yourself that we might not get from your essay. Stonehill does ask for a letter of recommendation. So we ask for one from a guidance counselor and one from a subject teacher. So in English, history, science, or math. I definitely recommend starting to think about the teachers that you've had for your junior year and then teachers you might have next year. And try and ask them early. The best recommendations always come from teachers who have had plenty of time to think about you as a student and reflect on your time together. So try and make sure you're giving plenty of time for them to write a great recommendation letter. And then just to back up Steve, I know that earlier he talked about those activity sheets and emphasizing checking in with your guidance counselor. The best recommendation letters from a guidance counselor come from counselors who have gotten a chance to get to know you as a student. So definitely take the time, tell them about yourself, tell them about the things you're involved with, and because that is an important piece of the application process for us. Stonehill has 5 different deadlines. As of right now, it's early action, early decision, early action 2, early decision 2, and then regular decision. So it's a lot of deadlines to keep track of. Everything is going to be listed on our website. Every college is going to list their deadlines, the most up-to-date deadlines on their website. So instead of listing all those deadlines out for you right now, just check our website when the time comes, and you'll be able to keep track of all the different application types that a school offers. One thing that I did want to mention, one of the differences too between early action and regular decision. So that early application that you may be using sometime early in the fall, whether maybe early December or November, versus an application deadline in January or February, is that in for the deadlines that are in January or February, we will most likely be able to see your first semester grades from senior year and consider those when reviewing you for admission. For applicants who are applying in early November or early December, it's unlikely that your first semester will have ended and then we'll be able to see those grades. We might be able to see first quarter grades, but we will not be able to recalculate those with your overall GPA. So for students who your senior year, you want us to consider the grades that you have gotten in the first semester, I would recommend holding off until regular decision to apply. This is the advice that I give our applicants. And I know that in the guidance office, this is a conversation that happens every year. But as you begin your senior year, think about the classes you're in, think about your current GPA, and think about how you're performing. And that's going to also influence what deadlines might be the right fit for you.
Thank you, Sarah. And I just want to piggyback on that a little bit. We're talking about the different deadlines. Another reason not to apply early would be if you're going to be rushed and not do as thorough a job as you need to do on these applications. It's the only impression they may get of you if you don't get on campus or do an interview. If you are playing a fall sport and you've got heavy duty classes and your time is very limited, you either need to start very early in the process, right when the Common App is available, which is usually around end of July, beginning of August, or you might want to hold off and apply for regular decision. And we just don't want you doing sloppy work. We want to make sure that you got your best effort forward in presenting yourself the best way you possibly can. The other piece is you got to be very careful with college application deadlines. They're serious. They're not estimates. A deadline is a deadline. And I'm sure not a day goes by you don't hear how competitive it is. And to get into college, you do not want to give the admissions folks a reason to drop you from the candidate pool for missing the deadline. You want to make sure that you have enough time to be able to meet it. A phone call from mom and dad is not going to cut it anymore. You're going to be treated like an adult. And they're going to want to deal with you, not with mom and dad. So it's not one thing that they can fix for you. So just be very cautious of the deadlines. Some of you may not know what the difference is between some of these early action, early decisions. So let's talk a little bit about that real quick. Early action is a non-binding application. So you can apply early action to as many schools as you'd like to, and you just find out sooner, okay? However, maybe it might not be the best opportunity for you. That's something you might want to discuss with your counselor to make sure that you're the right kind of candidate to apply early action or early decision. So it's non-binding. You can apply to as many schools as you want. You don't have to give your decision until May 1st. Early decision is a binding contract that you and your parents and your counselor are signing, saying you are applying to only one school early decision. If you get into that school, that's where you have to go. That you've already signed off that's what you're doing, and you will not find out about financial aid for several months after that. So if you end up getting into a school that's going to cost you $60,000-$70,000 a year, and you end up not getting financial aid, that might be problematic for you. You're not going to find a counselor around that is a big fan of early decision. So just be very cautious with the early decision ones, and just be very careful with that. Something else that comes up a lot is online applications versus mailing applications. I know this is the generation of the computer and the internet and all that and everything and technology, and you guys have grown up on computers and you're much more used to doing things online. But some of us had to kind of adjust to that. Now, we didn't grow up with it. And there's still some folks out there that get very skeptical of sending things electronically, feeling that the mail might be a better way of doing it. Correct me if I'm wrong, admissions counselors, but you probably prefer to receive these online if it's an opportunity, if it's an option.
Yeah, we don't even have paper applications or mail-in applications.
Okay.
Same.
Okay, but there are some schools out there that still do, and people get a little nervous about that sometimes, going, well, the paper one, I can touch it, I can see it, I'm putting it in the mail myself. The nice thing about doing it electronically is it's received instantly, and you have a record of submitting it. So there's no question about that. We send all of our documents electronically now, the transcripts, letters of recommendation, and all the forms we need to fill out for the students. We sent through Naviance electronically. There's only a handful of schools that still we have to do by mail. Since I've gotten back from vacation, almost daily, I'm getting emails from students and parents saying, you know, did you send that stuff out? I got an email from the college saying that something's missing, and I can just go right into Naviance. You guys can't see it, but we can. And it tells us exactly if it was, if it's been submitted or delivered, means they actually opened it up on their end. So it's nice to have that record just in case there's ever a problem down the road. We can say, nope, here it is, can't argue it. So don't be afraid of the online process. It works and it's effective. Okay, letters of recommendation. Just a quick note about that. We recommend that before you leave for the summer, and you don't have to do it right now, but by the time we start the next workshop in April, each of you should be identifying a teacher that can write your letter of recommendation for you. Okay, you don't, in most cases, you only need one. It has to be an academic letter of recommendation, so please don't ask your coach as to be the primary writer. Or, you know, you may not want to use a phys ed teacher. You may want to use more of an academic teacher in a subject, maybe even related to what you might possibly be majoring in. Or just a teacher that's really seen you perform very well. And it doesn't have to be a teacher that you got an A or a B in. If you got a C in a class that was extremely difficult and worked your butt off for that C, you went for the extra help, you had a tutor, or you did a study group, or whatever, you went for extra help after school, whatever it might be, those make great letters of recommendation also. So it's important that you identify somebody. Usually it is a junior teacher. You don't want to ask a teacher you had as a freshman and you have, or sophomore, and you haven't had them since, because you're putting a lot of distance between then and now. But you know, or maybe you had them once before and you know you're having them again as a senior, so they can possibly talk about the growth and the progress they've seen in you as a student over the years. But you want to get that commitment from a teacher before you leave the building for the summer. The junior teachers tend to get inundated with requests for recommendations. And some of them won't say no, but they get so slammed that they're not going to have time to really write an effective letter, because they get so many they have to get done, so they're just kind of whipping through them. So that's not going to serve you well. And other teachers may put a cap on it and say, listen, you know, I'm doing all this on my own time. I got my school stuff to do. I've got my family to take care of. You know, the first 20 students that ask me are the ones that I'm going to write for. So don't lock yourself out. Get in there and get that commitment from a teacher. All you have to say is that, you know, you're working on your college stuff and you're wondering if they'd be willing to write a letter for you next year. Yes, you know you've got your commitment, and then you can fill out next year. You can fill out, or over the summer, you can fill out the letter of rec info sheet for the teacher, which we'll talk about in April, and get that to them, and then they can be on their way with that. Okay, so let's move on to Aileen now. And Aileen, can you talk a little bit about the application and the essay and the process you went through?
Yeah, sure. So over the summer, I did the boot camp, and that definitely was an extremely important choice for the whole application process. And I remember like a few weeks ago, I was talking to a classmate about applying, and they said that they hadn't even started like the Common App. They hadn't started anything, and they didn't really know like how to do anything. So going through like the whole entire Common App at the boot camp was definitely very helpful. And like looking back on it now, I'm so glad I did it, because during the whole like other part of the process, I had so much else to worry about with writing supplement essays and like all the extra stuff, that I was glad to just have like that main core part of the Common App done, and I could just focus on each individual school. And so definitely with writing the essay, that's an important part of the process. And for me, I chose a topic that I knew I could write about, and I felt like confident in having like a lot of different reasons for like showing self-growth. And I decided to write about like a volunteer opportunity I had during sophomore year. Is when I volunteered at this summer camp for children with terminal illnesses and their families. So I kind of talked about how that experience shaped me as a person. And definitely the best piece of advice I can give for doing not only that essay, but all the different supplemental ones is just to be true to yourself when you're writing. I feel like the admissions counselors can definitely speak to this as well, is that they want to see students that are real people. They're not trying to sound like somebody that they're not. They want to see the real you. And definitely, even if you see optional questions on the Common App, definitely answer them, because they're there for you to share your voice and your story. And at the beginning of this process, I was definitely not that good at writing these essays. I got really nervous and was putting so much pressure on myself that they had to be perfect, that they had to like show off everything. But when it comes down to it, you just want to be true to yourself and just make the essay sound like something that you would actually say in real life, like make it authentic.
Yeah, and the essays did wind up being something that you might want to look ahead on some of the schools that you're thinking about, because we found that we thought a lot of it would just fall under the Common App, but then as the deadlines got closer, we realized, oh geez, the school is asking for 5 additional prompts, or 5 additional, 3 additional prompts or something like that. So something that took a little bit longer time-wise. And like Mr. Goldman had said, we did postpone one of her early action schools because she wasn't, didn't feel prepared and putting her best work into those essays. So we postponed that one application. So my advice is just to start as early as you can and definitely stay organized and participate in all these things that, that the high school has to offer. They're all great options. You'll learn a lot, even if you just take away, a few bits of information, it's worth it. So definitely start early. That's my biggest piece of advice.
So thank you. That you both brought up some really good points that I'm going to highlight. Starting early, absolutely. In the April workshop, we will list the new Common App prompts. There's usually 6 or 7 different prompts that they have in there, and you can pick what topic you want to write on. And usually the last one is a topic of your own choice. So sometimes that scares people. Sometimes they're like, oh, thank God, because I don't want to write any of those other things they're suggesting. My suggestion is you don't have to write it in April and May, but what I would do is they're usually looking for themes, an experience you had where you learned something about yourself, an obstacle or a challenge you've overcome, a person you admire and why. If you're going to write about a person you admire, always bring it back to yourself. I got a friend of mine who's an admissions counselor at Boston College, and he used to tell us and the parents all the time, we read these wonderful essays about grandma and grandpa, what wonderful people they were, and we gladly accept grandma and grandpa to our school. The student never brought it back to themselves as a result of their experience with grandma and grandpa. These are my values, my beliefs, my goals, and so on and so forth. So just be cautious on that one. But my suggestion would be, with those themes, start jotting down words and phrases that will jot your memory when you actually begin to write your essay. So you're not just sitting there saying, okay, I got to put sentences on this paper. So, if you're going to write about a person you admire and why, what are the qualities? Start writing down, write down an experience you had with that person. Just have a pad of paper by the side of your bed, or make a note in your phone or something. Have a spot where you can collect all these little pieces. And then when you actually sit down to start outlining and crafting this essay, you've got a bank of information that you can start plugging into it. The essay is not something you want to wait until the end and say, okay, took care of my teacher stuff, my counselor stuff, got my application done. Now I got 2 weeks, I'm going to sit down and write my essay. It doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. You are going to start reading lines and lines on that essay, and then you're going to say to yourself, what was it I just read? Because it's just going to be a blur. This is something you want to start working on, get away from it for a little bit, come back with a clear perspective, write a little bit more, get away from it for a while. It's a process. I don't know, Aileen, do you agree with that? You're muted.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a process.
Yeah.
And my process definitely wasn't perfect either. Like there were parts that I regret and some things that I'm happy that I did, but I think the most important thing is to enjoy it as much as you can while you're doing it and not to put so much pressure on yourself while you're doing it too. Because one of the most common questions that is on the Common App or just any application in general is the why school question and why you want to go to that specific college. And at first, this question, this was like the death of me while I was applying to schools, because I had done all this looking into these different academic programs and which ones were the best and which ones would maybe be more of a better match for me. But as I got used to doing this question more and more, I had a lot of fun getting to research the specific schools themselves. And I feel like that's such an important part of this process, is actually you sitting down and taking some time to yourself just to go through I remember just going through some schools' entire websites, just like getting lost. Like I'd have 15 different tabs open and I'd just be clicking through. And I think that's the best part, because you get to learn about the school and write about what interests you. And I feel like this whole process in general and applications is like a two-way street. You're going to be applying to schools, and colleges are going to be looking why you would be an asset to their community. But you also have to explain why you think that the school would be a good fit for you. And I think that's such an important part of this process in general. And just like I said before, have fun with it. A lot of my favorite prompts to answer were like the creative ones, because it was kind of just fun to write about whatever I wanted to. I remember one of the schools asked, like, if you could be any ice cream flavor, what one would you be?
And Vermont.
Yeah, it was Vermont.
Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Or Ben and Jerry, yeah. And just have fun with it and be creative, because colleges want to see something unique and something that sets you apart. You don't want to just be writing about something that everybody else will be writing about. You want to write about something that's unique to you and that kind of sets you apart from all the other applicants.
And it was nice to see when she finished those applications, a lot of times she would come out and she would tell me how excited she was about the different schools, because she had gone through their whole website and like looked at specific majors and maybe found out what the different professors were doing for research, or, all the things that the school had to offer for opportunities, travel abroad, outreach projects to the communities. It was just fun to hear her get excited about college.
Thank you. Thank you. And one more comment on the essay before we move on. It's more than just a writing sample. It's an opportunity to say, hey, I've answered all these questions on the essay, on the application, but this is what you're getting. This is who I am. If you've got a sense of humor and you're a funny person, put some humor into it. If you're not a funny person, now is not the time to try that out. Okay. So, at this point, I want Aileen. I spoke with not Aileen, Ian. I spoke with earlier today, and she had some really interesting resources that she wanted to share tonight. And some of them we were aware of, and a few that we weren't. So we actually are learning something in our office this evening too. So Ian, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. I just, in this whole journey, again, just what I had mentioned earlier, I feel like the more you kind of learn and participate in these kind of programs, the more you will learn about the process and about the different colleges. And I know a lot of us are on Facebook these days, so there were a few Facebook pages, but there are also websites too that you can access that I found to be particularly helpful. Now you're going to find a lot of information on them, so you can kind of have to tease those things out. But a few of them that I really liked, and I'll just touch upon them quickly. One of them is Niche, and I'll have Aileen type in I'll just have her type in the different websites, so you can have them, so you don't have to write them down. But one of them is called niche.com, and it sounds like it's very similar to Naviance. It will break down, like you can just type in the college that you're interested in, and it will just pop up all those different statistics about the students, about the schools, about the programs that they have to offer. And it also will pop up different rankings. And I believe most of the rankings are coming from US News and World Report. So there's a section there that you can see, like, oh, they're listed number 2 for biology in the country, or, you know, for big universities, small universities. So they all have, you know, it will list those sorts of things. Another one that I stumbled upon was called Paying for College 101. And their website is called road2college.com. That one is kind of just probably the next step in your process for paying for college and just thinking about that. I know I mentioned earlier that we kind of had a broad base of schools that Aileen was looking at. And in the end, a lot of times we talked about, like, well, what school, you know, ultimately it might come down to finances. It might be something a little closer, or a little, you know, just depending upon how expensive they are and what kind of a package she might be offered. So that's been helpful in our search. Another one that I really like is called Grown and Flown. And this website is, it's actually kind of a 2-part thing. It deals with kind of like the emotional piece that a parent might go through during this whole process, you know, as your kids become grown and flown. So it touches upon that. But the other thing I found, and I sat in on some of these little webinars from different people in the field about applying to college, and different pieces of advice that they might have. So that one, you know, kind of touched 2 aspects. Like I said, it was the emotional piece as a parent, but it was also very helpful. They had a lot of like little webinars or little Zoom calls about different parts in this whole process. So those were some of the ones. Oh, and there was another company called CollegeWise, and they're actually like they're actually a company that provides kids, you know, you can pay money to have a college coach, basically, to take you through this whole process. But they also have some free parts to their site that you can just click on and navigate on your own. It's not something you have to pay for. And then I'm someone that kind of likes to have something in front of me. So a couple of books that I found useful. One of them was the US News and World Report, Best Colleges for You. And they come out with a new one every year. So that was one of them. And then the Fisk Guide to Colleges was the second. And I got those both from the Middleborough Public Library. I don't know if you guys carry any of those resources. I know it's probably, again, one of those things that's gone by the wayside with everything being done on the computer. But I just, as a parent, I found it very helpful to have something, you know, that I could just access or flip through very easily. You know, especially if you've narrowed down your list and you know what colleges you want to look at. And so did you type those in yet or no?
No, I don't think there's an option.
Oh, there's not an option to do it. But maybe we can put those in the comments, I guess. Would that work out, Mr. Goldman?
What I can do is you sent those to me in email today, so I can send those out to all the juniors and parents through email.
Sure. Yeah. Just something I found very helpful, you know, any little bits. But again, the parents will have to kind of tease through some of the information too.
Sure.
And always contact the schools about, you know, any questions you have.
So, well, thank you. We will open it up to questions. There's actually a question that I can see here from Lauren, wanting to know if Naviance will also help find vocational schools or only college and universities. Yes, Naviance has a lot of vocational programs. They also have community colleges and other 2-year schools listed in there too. So that it is helpful to use it for that search. If anybody else has any questions, they want to type them into the comments. Anybody from the panel have anything they'd like to add before we call it a night? Okay, so we usually send out an evaluation when we do this in person, just so we can get a sense of if we were hitting the mark or if there's new things that we haven't covered that we need to add to the program. Unfortunately, we can't do that this evening, so I am going to just say if you would like to comment on tonight's presentation, positive or constructive, you can just email me at sgoldman, Goldman, at middleborough.k12.ma.us. And we will take that. This program has evolved over the course of, probably about 15 years based on the feedback we've got from parents and students. So please feel free to share anything with us. Just a reminder, we will be doing a special workshop in the fall for financial aid. That's usually the comment we get most. There's nothing you can do about financial aid right now. And we purposely have broken this program up into 3 parts and a separate financial aid night because we don't want to overwhelm you with information. Tonight probably was overwhelming enough. You do not want to be overwhelmed with all that. So please, we haven't forgotten it. We will get to it in a timely way and walk you through this whole process. Before I turn this back to Mr. Brannigan, I just want to thank tonight's panel. Sarah Tomaschauer from Stonehill College, Shannon Fernando Cole from Bridgewater State University, Aileen Petty, our student, Ann Petty, our parent, and a special thanks to Sean Siciliano, our technical director, who has been getting this out to all you folks. And thank you for tuning in tonight. We really appreciate it. We hope you found it helpful, and feel free to contact your school counselor if you have any additional questions. And I will say thank you and good night, and I will turn it over to Mr. Brannigan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Goldman. Just on behalf of the high school, to Sarah and to Shannon from Stonehill and from BSU, thank you so much for your expertise and your knowledge about sharing actually this whole process with our juniors. And obviously to the Pettys, to Aileen and to Ann, thank you so much. This journey that you're about to complete as the decisions will be made of where Aileen will be attending school. Your journey has been really so important for the families who are beginning this process. And we know that it looks different right now and that it is very just kind of, we don't know if there's in person and all of that, but I will say this, it's very important to be asking questions and to be connecting with your school counselors and to be a part of the partnering of that as well. So we bid you farewell to Mr. Goldman and to the rest of the school counseling department. Thank you for your collaboration in bringing this together, and be on the lookout for more programming for the class of 2022 as we partner with you and take the ride on your journey into the final lap of your high school career. So on behalf of all of us here, we wish you well, have a wonderful night, and we'll see you very soon.